Hello everyone, this is my reaction to last week's SCL Live Q&A, Vehicle Gameplay, Design and Balance.
And this week's show is a special pre-tape show for our friends in Xi'an, China. Comparing the RSI Perseus's in-game appearance against, I really didn't time that, against its original concept art, the original concept had a much cleaner look, while the flyable version features many irregular and unconventional design elements. How did the team envision this design evolution as you move towards production?
I spare you John Crew's answer. It's pretty much like Chris likes to put creepily on everything, even if it makes no sense and even if it's very bad for game performance. For Chris, it's all about cool looks and cinematics, and I don't like this. We don't have creepily all over things in real life.
Light fighters, medium fighters, and heavy fighters currently feel like their roles overlap and their counter relationships are unclear. Will there be a rework to better differentiate them?
Short answer to that is yes, but the long answer is, they are relatively close. So, so our light fighters are actually pretty heavy and pretty big, themselves. So it's no surprise that that kind of range of ships, it does blur the lines.
I have nothing personally against him. Please don't take this as a personal attack. But what he just says makes no sense. Translation: CRG in year 14 still has no idea how to balance light, medium and heavy fighters.
Like, we've been putting a lot of work over the past 12 months on the new flight model.
Did you put a lot of work on the flight model in the last 4 months? A year ago, Yogi said flight model is finished for Squadron 42. Well, in 3.23 we got Master Mode, which is arcadey and gamey. It's not fun, it is slow, we are now trapped in combat, which quite often is just a DPS race, and we will lose enough speed soon. After we got Master Mode in 3.23, Yogi said there will be lots of improvements in 4.0. Where there were none in 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7 and none in 4.8. And now you are telling us you are working again on the flight model last 4 months and you made lots of improvements. Did you really? Why can't we see those improvements? Isn't it the idea that players are testing what you want to change?
We need to treat fighters more as its own bucket, but in that bucket we also need to treat the fighters differently, so that there is a clear identity between the fighters.
Thorsten, do you realize those are hollow words? You are saying nothing. We are hearing the same thing from CRG for the last 12 years. Hey, we have light, medium and heavy fighters and those will have different roles. And now you still don't know how to do it exactly. This is how you sound.
And this is something that we have been working out. The new flight model that Rich and his team is working on is also moving us into that direction, that there's a better distinction between the fighters.
Well, this Star Citizen Live is really, really bad. Well, it was a promo show for Xi'an. They have no idea how to balance light, medium, heavy fighters. Now they are talking about the new flight model and armor will balance this. Why am I not convinced? The flight model is very important. Flight model should be nailed down in year 2 or 3. So many things, so much balancing depends on a flight model. But here we have CRG in year 14 with more than $1 billion in funding and they still have no clue how the flight model should work.
This hard gap between heavy fighters and medium fighters and light fighters, so there's this even a stop gap between medium fighters and heavy fighters. So we decided on that doesn't paint the picture of fighters, because fighters have to fight each other rather than there's one sitting outside that is immune to light fighters. So one consequence of us discussing in there was also bringing that closer together, but still maintaining perceived differences between these fighters.
I don't even know what to say anymore. CRG had this fantastic idea. Let's put armor into the game. This will balance everything. Light, medium and heavy fighters. And now they found out it didn't exactly work. This is a $1 billion project in year 14 and they are still throwing spaghetti at walls and check what sticks. CRG never has a plan, never has a concept, never thinks in advance and never thinks things through.
You don't do 20 hours of light fighter. I've done light fighter now, so now I'm going to upgrade my role or career into medium fighters and then heavy fighters. They're tools for different jobs. They're not like linear power upgrades. You can obviously upgrade, but it's a choice of how your gameplay is to go from light to medium. You could stay at a light fighter for all your game time if you want and have a perfectly great time. You don't need to go up the chain if you don't want to. It just gives you different opportunities and different experiences.
Thank you very much, John Crew, for this clarification. We all know now that you know nothing about Star Citizen. It's not about, okay, I will bring the right ship for the task. No, it's about the total dominance of light fighters in your game for the last 8 years at least. And you don't even know this, John.
CR wants this very cinematic combat that we are now getting closer and closer to, and that's the reason. I would even describe this as our red line in our iteration over all the flight experiences, flight combat, and flight changes that we have been doing over the years. It's like we always tried to aim what CR was envisioning, and there were always like some information that we get additionally, and then we could improve a bit more on what we actually wanted to achieve. And I think we are now getting close to like where we would get the CR seal of approval here. And especially like we did some tests, was it last week, with some like weapon changes that will not make it the way that we tested it in the game because we are not ready for that yet, but we will do a step in between for that. That is increasing the ranges for weapons and slowing down the bullet speed. It gives already a more cinematic approach to all the battle, or all the fights, and it helps also tremendously with having, like, even though with lower speeds, it might sound a bit contradicting, but actually with lower speeds you have a more agile combat because we have to bring closer together. You are able to dodge bullets more than you are previously, so there will be some. Or the goal for these changes is to have an agile combat in a closer range, which is exactly what CR wants for this game. And then with all the flight changes that we are working on, we are moving slowly into that direction.
Occasionally I read a comment like, yeah, Chris isn't really involved in the game anymore. Yeah, he is out of the loop. Chris is totally dictating everything. My way or the highway. Chris surrounded himself with spineless yes-men like, for example, Richard Tyra. And Chris is all about cool cinematic. Chris does not care about good gameplay. CRG will reduce bullet speeds even more, so we have to fight in melee range soon, like 200-300 meters, so that Chris gets his cool cinematic views. Fuck this. You're making a game, not a movie, Chris. At least I hope you know this.
Torpedoes and missiles sometimes have difficulty hitting targets. Their purpose remains unclear. Well, I think their purpose is clear. I think whether they achieve it is unclear. And the reliability is very worrying. Will there be improvements?
So we have a big kind of missile rework planned at the moment, where the core aspect of what's wrong with missiles right now is just it's really hard to predict where they're going to land because they're so quick. So we've got problems with networking.
Oh, you have another missile rework. Let me think. Is it now the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th missile rework? But this time it will fix it for sure. I think the main reason why missiles torpedoes are so unreliable is because CRG servers are way overworked, even after we got the first generation of server meshing in January 2025. We have lots of interaction delays and even do things of players and NPCs at walking speeds.
Currently, it is difficult for pilots and gunners to coordinate effectively. Pilots have a hard time knowing what their gunners are targeting and what firing arcs are available. Gunners also struggle to relay continuous targeting for sustained attacks on a single vessel. Can this be made better?
I'm saying this for a long time now in my videos. There are very little tools to gather any tactical awareness. For example, the captain of the Hammerhead has a 2D radar screen where he can't see much, and he can try to look out of his window where he can't see much either. A ship like a Hammerhead needs a control and command function, for example a holocloak. But to this day CRG never showed us how a holocloak is supposed to work.
So there are different endeavors we have around that. So there's one big that is more like globally for the game itself, which is all the social work that is planned to be improved. So that will also help a lot with communication on your same ship, like the sharing of markers and helping at least communicating where to aim at. These are definitely something that we have on the list. There's also like all the marker improvements that have been discussed at this point for 2 years.
Social tools don't help with this issue. VoIP doesn't help. Most serious players are already using things like Discord. Sharing of markers can help. Still, the captain of a Hammerhead cannot just quickly turn his ship and try to mark targets. Hammerhead is way too sluggish for this. The captain of a Hammerhead needs to see the targets around him and the ships he has to protect. Make it a hologlobe, make it just a 2D flat screen, whatever. And then he should just be able to click on a target that's very important, and his gunners can focus this one target.
The Idris, the javelin stuff. We've seen these images of the map table and stuff. Having there be a role that is, all right, that's our new target. Being able to click it and for that to go to every turret, gunner, like this is your target. When this guy comes in front of you, that's who you're doing.
Yes, exactly this, a map table where you can see friendlies and enemies, and players who mark certain targets for the turret gunners.
And stuff. It also just takes forever trying to crew these things. Right now we've got the Idris out there, but finding enough people and getting your positions and stuff.
But even on that, we have like some like improvements already in the works. That
like what?
The teleport. I don't know if we should talk about that though.
This is the show to talk about it, my friend.
So we have right now, it's not signed off yet. So they are like, because we have to fit this work into the theme of Star Citizen. And it's like, if I phrase it now the way that I will phrase it, you understand why it is really hard to put it into the framing of what we sell as Star Citizen. It's the teleport to party leader, where we want to allow players to, in certain situations, be able to quick travel to your party group or your party hangar, and then be able to go on a mission.
Spectrum and Reddit are full of this discussion right now. Do we want to teleport to party leader? Well, in the past, we had agent smithing. Chris talked about this quite often. Some people write teleporting to party leader would destroy the immersion. I can see this. On the other hand, Star Citizen is a very tedious game. Lots of time sinks on top of time sinks on top of time sinks. Understand, it's a space game. We shouldn't be able to teleport to everywhere in a split second. I don't want this. On the other hand, I don't want to start a game and spend like 20, 30, 60, 90 minutes just for preparation, just to flying to another star system, just to fly to a certain planet or space station to group up. Teleportation to party leader is not final, but I'm happy that CRG even talks and thinks about this.
Are suit lockers in ships getting any closer to becoming a thing, especially with the upcoming feature of flight suits being necessary to be able to handle more G-forces?
Yes.
Jungkook basically said they are working on it. And of course, no date.
Will the Caterpillar ever be given the ability to have detachable modules and ability to be outfitted for different scenarios like it advertises on the website?
Yes, we still want to do modules. The Caterpillar, as you know it and love it, will look broadly the same when we do that, but expect it to be brought up internally to the current standard that you see in the Ironclad.
You want to talk about any of the modules you're considering?
We never officially disclosed any, I believe.
Oh no, John. CRG definitely showed us Caterpillar modules. I don't know how this can happen. You knew the questions. And to remind you, here's part of a video from 2015.
We're taking a look at the initial design and layout of the Drake Caterpillar.
The Caterpillar is an interesting ship just because it's asymmetrical, it has multiple purposes, multiple uses, and just the modularity alone has been kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually going to take you guys on a journey through the different pieces of this ship. The command module that does detach. So let's start looking at some of the modules. We showed you the cargo module. If you want more crew, you can add more modules But again, if you add more personnel modules, then you're sacrificing cargo modules or any other modules you want. So it's kind of a give or take what functionality you want. So the front module is going to be its own thing, and then you can swap those out, and then you're going to have a few modules behind that. So actually, let me show you real quick. If we look here, each one of these is a module. So I'm seeing one, which is the front module right here.
Okay.
Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Wow.
So we're looking at 5 modules the player can swap in and out.
So for a total of 6 modules.
Yes. There's kind of an armory. So if you're going to be setting up for troops, then you want to have like, you know, a barracks personnel thing so you can fit more people in. It's not as comfortable, but you have more people. And basically the armory will host all the weapons. It'll have like a workbench. You'll have like a holo table so you can kind of preview all of your changes for your loadouts. Then we have a workshop that's basically a shop. So let's go to one of the more nicer ones, medical bay. So, and up top we have where the doctors would be kind of making sure, checking up on everybody, and then they have like a little elevator here, the chop shop. Well, sorry, mobile salvage. Right here we have actually one of the barracks module, and this one is a docking bay, or a docking collar, sorry. And this is kind of if the Caterpillar becomes like a meeting point. So,
Go ahead.
I was saying, an example of it is if you look up, I have a few ships up here kind of using the docking collar just to make sure it works. We're trying to basically figure out how everything fits together, what works. All this is done with metrics, so that way light, medium, and heavy armored people can actually move around within the ship and not have an issue.
We talk about ground vehicles almost as long as we've talked about the next version of the flight model.
Yeah.
Like.
So the two things are connected. So we wanted to complete what we think is the new flight experience first before we moved our resources onto the ground vehicles. But, well, it was like 3 years ago now, we did do a update in a very limited slot of time we had to introduce a new time model, some new suspension physics, and just generally how they behave.
I'm talking about the terrible ground vehicle physics for I don't know how many years by now. 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. I never understood why CIG is so bad with ground vehicles. The rework he's talking about 3 years ago didn't improve anything. Of course, Star Citizen is not a racing game, it's not iRacing, it's not ACC, but driving a ground vehicle in Star Citizen is one of the worst experiences I've ever had in any game. Driving physics in year 14, no mass simulation, no inertia, which leads to massive oversteering, no feedback for the driver. Ground vehicles just pivot around the center Z-axis. Even a 70-ton Nova tank on one cheap planet jumps around as if it would be made out of paper. My guess is someone like John Pritchett would be easily able to fix this. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen. Okay, Flickr is now at 66 meters, and Flickr you can try to come up. 20, 13, 8. There's Flickr. Flickr coming up from underground. It worked, Flickr. It worked. Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter or on Blue Sky.